Billionaire CEO gets a baby formula text by mistake, then realizes who the mother really is. The phone screen glowed in the darkness. 1:15 in the morning. The message sat there, unread for 30 seconds, on a private line only 4 people in the world had access to. Callum Hale stared at it. I'm out of baby formula and I don't get paid until Monday. Is there any program or fund that could help me today? I'm sorry to ask. His finger hovered over the screen. Delete. Block. Move on. That's what he should have done. That's what he trained himself to do for 4 years. Keep the walls up. Keep the past buried. But something in those words. The quiet desperation. The apology for needing help. He typed back. You have the wrong number. But what do you need? 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Then her reply came. It's not your problem. He should have stopped there. Let it go. Let her go. Instead, he wrote back. Maybe not. But I'm asking anyway. What came next would unravel everything. Welcome back to another powerful story, my beloved listeners. Kindly tell where you're watching from and what time it is where you're at. If you're new here, prepare for a story of betrayal, unexpected love, and what truly makes a family. Drop everything and listen closely. This tale of heartbreak and redemption might just change how you view love and family forever. 6 hours earlier, Daniela Cross sat on the bathroom floor of an apartment that smelled like mildew and broken promises. The overhead light had burned out 2 weeks ago. She hadn't replaced it. What was the point? She brushed her teeth by the glow of her phone screen now. Showered in the dark. Sometimes she wondered if she was disappearing into that darkness, one burnt-out bulb at a time. From the bedroom, a sound. Not a cry. Not yet. Just the soft, restless whimper that meant Ivy was waking up. Reaching for something in her sleep that wasn't there. Daniela pushed herself up from the cold tile. Her knees cracked. 28 years old and her body already felt ancient. Hunger did that. Stress did that. 3 years of surviving on nothing but coffee and adrenaline did that. She walked into the bedroom. The crib stood in the corner, second-hand, donated by a church she'd visited exactly once. The woman who gave it to her had smiled so kindly, had pressed Daniela's hand and said God provides. Daniela had wanted to scream. Wanted to ask where God had been when Ethan died. Where he'd been when the medical bills came. Where he was now, when she was counting pennies to buy formula. But she'd just smiled back. Took the crib. Said thank you. Ivy lay on her back. Tiny fists curled against her chest. Eyes squeezed shut like she was fighting to stay asleep just a little longer. She had Ethan's chin. His nose. His way of frowning even in sleep, like the world was a puzzle she was trying to solve. Daniela reached into the crib. Smoothed her hand over Ivy's chest. The baby's breathing steadied. Not yet, Daniela thought. Just give me a little more time. She had 2 bottles of formula left. Maybe 3 if she watered them down. Again. She'd been doing that for a week now, stretching every ounce, and she could see it in the way Ivy fed. Faster. Hungrier. Never quite satisfied. Babies knew. They couldn't tell you in words, but they knew. Daniela walked back to the kitchen. The fluorescent light buzzed overhead. One of the bulbs flickered every few seconds, casting the room in and out of shadow. She'd gotten used to it. The way you get used to anything if you live with it long enough. She picked up her phone from the counter. Opened her messages. Scrolled through contacts like she was looking for someone who might still care. Her brother hadn't answered her last 3 texts. The ones before that, he'd just sent back a thumbs-up emoji. Like her asking for help was something you could acknowledge with a cartoon hand. Her best friend from college, Maya, had moved to Portland last year. They'd been close once. Late-night study sessions. Weekend road trips. The kind of friendship where you tell each other everything. But that was before Ethan got sick. Before Daniela's life became a series of catastrophes Maya couldn't fix. After the second time Daniela asked for money, the replies got shorter. Then they stopped coming at all. She scrolled past Marcus. Old boss from the waitressing job she'd quit when he started texting her after midnight. Asking if she needed a ride home. letting his hand linger too long when he handed her tips. No. She kept scrolling. Stopped on a name. Dr. Lawn. Pediatrician. Her thumb hovered. Pride whispered at her to stop. To figure it out herself. But pride didn't feed babies. Pride didn't keep the lights on. She typed the message quickly, before she could change her mind. I know this isn't what your office does, but I'm out of formula and I don't get paid until Monday. Is there any program or fund that could help me today? I'm sorry to ask. She hit send. Dropped the phone on the counter like it had burned her. Pressed her palms against her eyes until she saw stars. She didn't pray. She'd stopped praying the day Ethan died. But if she had, she might have asked for just this one thing. Just enough to get through the weekend. Just enough to keep Ivy fed until the paycheck came. Just enough to not feel like a failure for one more day. The phone buzzed. Her heart jumped. She grabbed it. But the reply wasn't from Dr. Lawn's office. You have the wrong number. But what do you need? Daniela stared at the screen. Blinked. Read it again. She checked the contact. Looked at the number she'd typed. Oh God. One digit off. She'd mistyped one single number. Her face burned. She typed back fast. I'm so sorry. Please ignore. Wrong number. She locked the screen. Tossed the phone onto the counter. Leaned against the sink and let out a breath that felt like it had been stuck in her chest for hours. Of course. Of course she'd mess up the one thing she needed to get right. That was her life now. A series of almost solutions that slipped through her fingers at the last second. The phone buzzed again. She almost didn't look. But something made her pick it up. You didn't answer my question. Daniela's breath caught. She read the message 3 times. Who was this person? What kind of stranger followed up on a wrong number? She typed slowly. It's not your problem. The reply came so fast it startled her. Maybe not. But I'm asking anyway. She stood there in the flickering kitchen light, phone in her hand, and felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Curiosity. And beneath it, the faintest, most fragile thread of hope. Her fingers moved across the screen. I'm out of baby formula. I can't afford more until Monday. I thought I was texting my daughter's pediatrician. I'm sorry for bothering you. She hit send. Waited. Watched the 3 dots appear. Then disappear. Then appear again. What's your Venmo? Daniela's stomach dropped. Her hands started shaking. I'm not asking for money. I know. I'm offering. Why would you help a stranger? The reply took longer this time. Like the person on the other end was choosing their words carefully. Because once, a stranger helped me. What's your handle? Daniela stood there for a full minute. Staring at those words. Trying to find the catch. The angle. The reason this didn't make sense. But Ivy whimpered again from the bedroom. And the formula container on the counter was nearly empty. And Monday was 3 days away. She typed her Venmo name. Hit send. Set the phone down. 30 seconds later, it lit up. She picked it up. Opened the notification. $3,000 received from C. Hale. The phone slipped from her hand. Clattered onto the counter. She grabbed it again. Stared at the screen. Refreshed the app. Still there. $3,000. She couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Her vision blurred and she realized she was crying. Not the quiet tears she'd learned to cry. The kind that came when Ivy was asleep and the lights were off and no one could see. But full, gasping sobs that bent her in half over the kitchen sink. She pressed her hand over her mouth to muffle the sound. $3,000. She hadn't asked for $3,000. She'd needed 40. Maybe 50. Her fingers shook as she typed. This is too much. I only needed $40. The reply came immediately. It's already yours. One less thing to worry about. Daniela slid down to the floor. Sat there with her back against the cabinet, phone clutched in both hands. Thank you. I don't know what else to say. You don't have to say anything. Just take care of your daughter. She stared at that message. Read it again. Wait. She scrolled back through the conversation. Looked at every message she'd sent. She'd never mentioned having a daughter. She'd said baby formula. That was all. How did this stranger know? Her hands were still shaking when she set the phone down. But this time it wasn't from relief. It was something else. Something that felt like the ground shifting beneath her. Across the city, in an office with walls made of glass and silence, Callum Hale sat in the dark. He hadn't turned the lights on in hours. Didn't need them. The glow from the computer screen was enough. It always was. The building was empty. His CFO had left at 9, briefcase in hand, asking if Callum needed anything before he went. Callum had said no. He always said no. His assistant had stopped asking around 7. Just sent a text. Heading out. Documents are on your desk. See you tomorrow. The cleaning crew wouldn't arrive until 3 in the morning. That gave him 4 hours of perfect, uninterrupted silence. This was when he did his best work. When the world was asleep and he could think without the noise of other people's expectations pressing in. He scrolled through acquisition reports. Scanned financial projections. Sipped cold espresso that had gone bitter hours ago. His phone buzzed. The private one. The number only 4 people had. He glanced at it. Unknown number. He almost ignored it. Should have ignored it. But the preview caught his eye. I know this isn't what your office does, but I'm out of formula and I don't get paid until Monday. Callum stopped scrolling. Set down the espresso. Picked up the phone. Opened the message. Read it fully. It wasn't spam. Wasn't a scam. The desperation was too real. Too raw. He'd seen enough fake pleas in his years of wealth to know the difference. This was someone at the end of their rope. Someone who'd swallowed their pride just to ask. Someone who'd typed the wrong number. He could have ignored it. Deleted it. Blocked it. Moved on with his night. But something in those words hooked into him. Pulled at a place he'd thought he'd sealed off. Out of formula. Baby. Monday. He knew that desperation. Not personally. But he'd seen it. In the faces of patients who came to his trials too late. In the families who sat in waiting rooms, praying for miracles that medicine couldn't promise. In the face of a woman he'd only met twice. Once at a wedding. Once at a funeral. He typed before he could stop himself. You have the wrong number. But what do you need? He hit send. Set the phone down. Went back to the reports. But his eyes didn't move across the screen. He was waiting. The reply came. It's not your problem. He almost smiled. Pride. He recognized that too. Maybe not. But I'm asking anyway. This time the pause was longer. He imagined the person on the other end. Debating. Weighing their options. Wondering if this was real. Then the reply. I'm out of baby formula. I can't afford more until Monday. I thought I was texting my daughter's pediatrician. I'm sorry for bothering you. Callum's chest tightened. Daughter. He opened a new window on his computer. Pulled up a reverse phone lookup. Typed in the number. The result came back in seconds. Area code 617. Boston. Dorchester neighborhood. His hands went still on the keyboard. That neighborhood. Ethan had talked about moving there once. Said it was affordable. Close to the hospital. Good for raising a family. Callum opened another tab. Typed in the phone number again, this time in a deeper database. One of the perks of having more money than most small countries. Access. The name came back. Daniela Cross. The air left his lungs. He opened a third tab. Typed her name. Hit search. Photos loaded. Social media profiles, sparse and outdated. A wedding announcement from 5 years ago. There she was. Smiling in a white dress. Hair pulled back. Eyes bright. And beside her, Ethan Cross. Callum sat back in his chair. Stared at the screen. 4 years. 4 years of looking. Hiring investigators. Checking records. Trying to keep a promise to a dying man. And she just texted him by accident. He looked at the message thread again. At her words. I'm out of baby formula. Ethan's daughter. She'd been born after he died. Callum had never met her. Never even seen a photo. But she was real. And she needed formula. And Daniela was struggling. The promise echoed in his head. Ethan's voice, hoarse from the ventilator they'd removed an hour before. Take care of them. Daniela and the baby. Promise me. Callum had promised. Had signed the document Ethan insisted on. Had watched his best friend die knowing he'd failed to save him but swearing he'd protect what Ethan left behind. And then Daniela had disappeared. Changed her number. Moved. Stopped going to the support groups the hospital offered. The investigator had hit dead ends for months. Eventually, Callum had stopped looking. Told himself that maybe she didn't want to be found. That maybe his presence would only remind her of everything she'd lost. But here she was. Asking a stranger for help. Not knowing the stranger had been searching for her. He typed. What's your Venmo? Her reply came fast. I'm not asking for money. I know. I'm offering. Why would you help a stranger? He stared at that question. Let his fingers rest on the keyboard. How did he answer that without giving himself away? Because once, a stranger helped me. What's your handle? It wasn't entirely a lie. Ethan had been a stranger once. Before they became partners. Before they became friends. Before Callum watched him die and promised to protect the family he'd never get to raise. She sent her Venmo name. Callum opened the app. Typed in 3,000. Hit send. It wasn't charity. It was a debt 4 years overdue. Her reply came moments later. This is too much. I only needed $40. He typed back. It's already yours. One less thing to worry about. Thank you. I don't know what else to say. You don't have to say anything. Just take care of your daughter. He sent it before he thought about the wording. Then he saw it. Daughter. She'd said baby. Formula. Not daughter specifically. He waited. Wondering if she'd notice. If she'd ask. But no reply came. Callum set the phone down. Leaned back in his chair. Closed his eyes. For the first time in 4 years, the weight on his chest felt just a fraction lighter. The formula arrived the next morning. Daniela heard the knock and opened the door to find a delivery man holding 4 large boxes. "For Daniela Cross," he said. She signed. Took the boxes inside. Set them on the kitchen counter. Opened the first one. Formula. The organic kind. The kind she'd only ever seen in commercials. The kind that cost $40 a container. There were 12 containers in the first box alone. She opened the second box. More formula. Different brand. Same quality. Third box. Diapers. The good kind. Sensitive skin. Size 3 and size 4. Like someone had thought ahead. Planned for Ivy to grow. Fourth box. Baby food. Wipes. Diaper cream. Teething toys. Daniela stood in the middle of her tiny kitchen, surrounded by boxes, and felt like she was in someone else's life. Her neighbor Rosa knocked and let herself in the way she always did. "What's all this?" Rosa asked. Her eyes went wide. "Danny. What happened?" Daniela shook her head. "I don't even know. Did you win something?" "No. I just... Someone helped me." Rosa picked up a container of formula. Turned it over. "Read the label. This is like $50. Who helped you?" "A stranger." Rosa set the container down. Looked at Daniela hard. "Nobody gives this much for nothing. You need to find out who this person is." Daniela nodded. She'd been thinking the same thing all morning. After Rosa left, Daniela sat on the couch with her phone. Opened the Venmo app. Looked at the transaction again. $3,000 from C. Hale. She clicked on the name. The profile was blank. No photo. No bio. No transaction history visible. She opened a new browser window. Typed C. Hale Boston. The results loaded. And her heart stopped. Callum Hale. CO. Meridian Biogenomics. She clicked on the first article. A photo loaded. A man in a suit. Sharp jaw. Gray eyes. Standing outside a building made of glass. Net worth $9.4 billion. She scrolled. Clicked another link. Former Harvard medical researcher. Gene therapy pioneer. Widower. She clicked on images. More photos. Conference stages. Senate hearings. Medical galas. And then one that made her breath catch. An older photo. Grainier. Taken at a university event. Callum Hale shaking hands with someone. Both of them holding an award. She zoomed in. The man standing beside Callum. Younger. Smiling. Healthy. Ethan. Her hands went numb. The phone nearly slipped from her grip. She zoomed in closer. Stared at Ethan's face. At the way he stood next to Callum like they were colleagues. Friends. She scrolled. Found the caption. Doctors Callum Hale and Ethan Cross received the Genomic Research Innovation Award. Daniela's chest went tight. She couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Ethan had never mentioned Callum Hale. Never mentioned Meridian Biogenomics. He'd worked at a small research lab. That's what he'd told her. Small team. Modest funding. Important work but nothing glamorous. He'd never said anything about awards. About partnerships. About breakthroughs. She kept scrolling. Clicked on another article. This one 9 years old. Meridian Biogenomics announces major breakthrough in genomic cancer research. Led by Dr. Ethan Cross and Dr. Callum Hale. Daniela read the article 3 times. Each word felt like a stone in her stomach. Gene therapy. Cancer treatment. Clinical trials. Patents filed. FDA approval. Funding secured. And at the bottom of the article, a quote from Callum Hale. This research will save thousands of lives. Ethan Cross is the most brilliant scientist I've ever worked with. This breakthrough is as much his as it is mine. Daniela set the phone down. Stood. Paced to the window. Looked out at the grey street below. Ethan had died of cancer. The same cancer he'd been researching. And Callum Hale had become a billionaire from the research they'd done together. She pressed her hand to the glass. Felt the cold seep into her palm. Why hadn't Ethan told her? Why had Callum sent her money? How had he known who she was? Her phone buzzed. She walked back. Picked it up. A message from C. Hale. How's your daughter doing? Daniela stared at the screen. Her heart pounded so hard she could feel it in her throat. He knew. He'd known from the start. She typed slowly. She's fine. Thank you again. Good. Let me know if you need anything else. Her fingers hovered. She wanted to ask. Wanted to demand answers. But something held her back. Can I ask you something? Of course. Why did you really help me? The 3 dots appeared. Stayed for a long time. Longer than any of his other replies. Then the message came. Because I owe someone I can't repay. And maybe this evens the scales a little. Daniela read it twice. Then a third time. She knew. Without him saying the name. Without confirmation. He was talking about Ethan. She sat down on the couch. Pulled a blanket around herself even though she wasn't cold. From the bedroom, Ivy started crying. The real cry this time. The hungry one. Daniela stood. Walked to the kitchen. Opened one of the new formula containers. Mixed a bottle with hands that shook. Went to the bedroom. Picked Ivy up. Sat in the rocking chair by the window. Ivy latched onto the bottle immediately. Drank like she'd been waiting for this. For enough. For full. Daniela watched her daughter's face. Saw Ethan in every feature. And she wondered what else he'd kept from her. What else she didn't know about the man she'd married. The man she'd buried. The man whose daughter was drinking formula paid for by a billionaire she'd never heard of until yesterday. She looked at her phone on the armrest. Then she made a decision. The next 2 days passed in a blur of research. Daniela put Ivy down for naps and opened her laptop. Searched every combination of Ethan's name and Callum's name she could think of. She found articles, press releases, photos. A timeline started forming. 10 years ago. Ethan and Callum meet at Harvard Medical School. Both researchers. Both focused on genetic therapies. 9 years ago. They publish their first paper together. It gets attention. Funding. They start working on a clinical trial. 8 years ago. Major breakthrough. Gene therapy that targets specific cancer mutations. The trial gets fast-tracked. 7 years ago. More funding. Meridian Biogenomics officially founded. Ethan listed as co-founder and chief research officer. 6 years ago. Ethan and Daniela get married. He tells her he works at a research lab. Doesn't mention the company. Doesn't mention the patents. Doesn't mention Callum. 5 years ago. Ethan gets diagnosed. Stage 4. Aggressive. The same type of cancer their research targets. 4 years ago. Ethan dies. 3 weeks before the clinical trial gets FDA approval. Daniela sits at the funeral. 5 months pregnant. Alone. Callum Hale is there. She remembers now. A man in a black suit standing in the back. He didn't come to the reception. Didn't introduce himself. Just stood there during the service and left before it ended. She hadn't known who he was then. But he'd known who she was. 4 years ago. The trial gets approved. The therapy starts saving lives. Meridian Biogenomics goes public. Callum Hale becomes a billionaire. Daniela keeps searching. Finds a Forbes article from 2 years ago. Callum Hale. Net worth $9.4 billion. Pioneered gene therapy now used in 17 countries. Saved over 40,000 lives. When asked about his late research partner, Hale declined to comment. Daniela closed the laptop. Pressed her hands to her face. 40,000 lives. Ethan's research had saved 40,000 people. But it hadn't saved him. And Daniela had been living in a crumbling apartment, watering down formula, selling her grandmother's ring to pay the electric bill. While Callum Hale built an empire. She stood. Walked to the window. Looked out at the city. Anger burned in her chest. Not the hot, explosive kind. The slow, steady kind that settled into your bones and didn't leave. Her phone buzzed. Another message from C. Hale. I hope you're both doing well. Daniela stared at it. Let the anger simmer. Then she typed. We need to talk. The reply came immediately. Of course. When? Daniela looked at Ivy, asleep in the crib. Looked at the boxes of formula and diapers stacked in the corner. Looked at the laptop still open on the table, Callum's face frozen on the screen. She typed. Tomorrow. Tell me where. My office. Meridian Biogenomics. I'll leave your name with security. Come whenever you're ready. Daniela sent back a simple okay. Then she set the phone down. Sat on the edge of the bed. And let herself feel everything she'd been pushing down for 2 days. Confusion. Betrayal. Grief. And beneath it all, a question that wouldn't stop echoing. If Callum had known who she was. If he'd been looking for her. If he'd made some kind of promise to Ethan. Why had it taken 4 years and a wrong number for him to find her? The next morning, Daniela dressed carefully. Not her nicest clothes. She didn't have nice clothes anymore. But clean jeans. A sweater without stains. Her hair pulled back. She packed Ivy's diaper bag. Made sure she had enough bottles for a few hours. Extra clothes. Toys to keep her calm. Rosa knocked at 8. You sure about this? Rosa asked. She stood in the doorway, arms crossed. No, Daniela said. But I'm going anyway. You want me to come with you? Daniela shook her head. I need to do this alone. Rosa stepped closer. Lowered her voice. If this guy tries anything at all, you call me. I don't care how much money he has. Daniela managed a smile. I will. She took the subway across the city. Ivy strapped to her chest in the carrier. The baby was calm. Looking around at the other passengers with wide eyes. Reaching for the metal pole when the train swayed. Daniela kept her hand on Ivy's back, felt the steady rise and fall of her breathing. She's the reason, Daniela thought. The reason I'm doing this. The reason I need answers. Because Ivy deserved to know the truth about her father. About the work he did. About the people he saved. And about the man who'd promised to take care of them and somehow let 4 years slip by. The train stopped. Daniela got off. Walked 3 blocks. And then she saw it. Meridian Biogenomics. A tower of glass and steel. Gleaming in the late morning sun. The kind of building that looked like it cost more than entire neighborhoods. Daniela stood across the street. Stared up at it. Somewhere in there. Callum Hale. The man who'd sent her $3,000. The man who'd worked with Ethan. The man who'd built an empire while she'd been drowning. She almost turned around. Almost got back on the train. Went home. Pretended none of this had happened. But Ivy shifted in the carrier. Made a soft sound. And Daniela remembered why she was here. She crossed the street. Pushed through the revolving door. The lobby took her breath away. Marble floors. Soft lighting. Furniture that looked like modern art. A reception desk that stretched the length of the room. A woman behind the desk looked up. Smiled. The kind of smile that was polite but distant. "Can I help you?" she asked. Daniela walked forward. Felt every eye in the lobby turn toward her. A woman in jeans and a sweater. A baby strapped to her chest. Clearly out of place. "I'm here to see Callum Hale," Daniela said. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. "Do you have an appointment?" "He's expecting me." Daniela cross. The receptionist's smile didn't falter. "1 moment please." She picked up the phone. Spoke quietly. Daniela couldn't hear the words. Then the receptionist hung up. Looked at Daniela. "He'll be right down." Daniela nodded. Stepped back. Stood near the window and waited. Her heart pounded. Her hands were sweating. Ivy babbled softly, oblivious. 2 minutes passed. Then 3. Then the elevator doors opened. And Callum Hale stepped out. He was taller than she expected. The photos hadn't captured that. Broad shoulders. Sharp suit. Grey eyes that found hers immediately. He walked toward her. Hands in his pockets. Expression careful. Controlled. He stopped a few feet away. "Daniela," he said quietly. Just her name. Like he'd said it 1,000 times before. She swallowed. "You knew." It wasn't a question. He didn't deny it. "Yes." "How long?" "Since the first message." Daniela felt her chest tighten. "How?" "Your number. The area code. I looked you up. And you didn't tell me." Callum's jaw tightened. "I didn't know if you knew who I was. I didn't want to make it harder." "Harder?" Daniela's voice cracked. "You built an empire off research my husband died creating. You're a billionaire and I'm living in a 1-bedroom apartment wondering if I can afford diapers. And you didn't think I deserved to know?" People in the lobby were staring now. Daniela didn't care. Callum glanced around. Then back at her. "Come upstairs. Please. Let me explain." Daniela hesitated. Every instinct told her to leave. To walk out. To never look back. But she needed answers. She nodded. Callum led her to the elevator. Hit the button for the top floor. The doors closed. And for the first time in 4 years, Daniela Cross stood face to face with the man who held all the secrets her husband had never told her. The elevator was silent except for the soft hum of machinery. Daniela watched the numbers climb. 10. 15. 20. Callum stood beside her, close enough that she could see the tension in his jaw. Far enough that he wasn't crowding her. Ivy shifted in the carrier. Made a small sound. Callum glanced down. His expression changed. Softened just slightly. "She looks like him," Callum said quietly. Daniela's throat tightened. "She does." The numbers kept climbing. 30. 35. "What's her name?" Callum asked. "Ivy." He nodded. Looked away. "That's beautiful." The elevator slowed. Stopped. The doors opened onto a hallway with floor-to-ceiling windows. The city sprawled below them, bright and endless. Callum stepped out. Daniela followed. He led her down the hall, past glass-walled conference rooms, past offices where people sat at computers, talking on phones, living lives that looked nothing like hers. They reached a door at the end. Callum opened it, gestured for her to go in. She stepped inside. The office was exactly what she expected. Massive. Windows on 2 walls. Sleek furniture. A desk that looked like it belonged in a design magazine. Awards on shelves. Patents framed on the walls. And photos. Daniela's eyes went to them immediately. One showed Callum shaking hands with someone in a suit. Another at a medical conference. A third receiving an award on a stage. And there, on the wall behind his desk, a framed photograph. Ethan. Younger. Smiling. Standing in a lab coat with Callum beside him. Both of them holding beakers like they were toasting. Daniela walked toward it. Stopped in front of it. Stared. She hadn't seen Ethan smile like that in years. Not since before the diagnosis. Before the chemo. Before the hospital rooms and the morphine drip and the ventilator. When was this taken? She asked. 8 years ago, Callum said from behind her. The day we got the first round of funding. Daniela touched the frame. Let her fingers rest on the glass. He never told me about you. I know. Why? Callum was quiet for a moment. Then he walked to the window. Looked out at the city. Because he didn't want you to worry. He didn't want you to know how dangerous the work was. How many late nights. How many times we failed before we succeeded. Daniela turned. Dangerous. Callum nodded. We were working with gene therapy. Experimental. Unproven. The funding was unstable. The board wanted results we couldn't promise. Ethan was putting in 80-hour weeks. Sometimes more. And you didn't think I should know that? I told him to tell you, Callum said. His voice was quiet but firm. I told him you deserved to know what he was working on. But he said you had enough to worry about. You were working 2 jobs. Saving for the wedding. He didn't want to add more stress. Daniela laughed. It came out bitter. So he just lied. He didn't lie. He just didn't tell you everything. That's the same thing. Callum looked at her. Maybe it is. Daniela walked to the desk. Looked at the awards. The patents. The evidence of a career built on research her husband had died creating. You got rich off his work, she said. Callum's jaw tightened. We both did the work. Together. But you're the one who's alive to profit from it. The words landed hard. Daniela saw Callum flinch. Saw something crack in his carefully controlled expression. You think I don't know that? He said. His voice was low. Strained. You think I don't wake up every day and see his face? You think I don't count every patient we save and wonder why he wasn't one of them? Then why didn't you help me? Daniela's voice broke. If you cared so much. If you felt so guilty. Why did it take 4 years and a wrong number? Callum turned away. Walked to the window. Pressed his hand against the glass. Because I tried, he said. And I failed. What does that mean? It means I looked for you. After the funeral. I went to your apartment. You'd moved. I tried your phone. Number disconnected. I hired investigators. They found nothing. You disappeared. I had to, Daniela said. I couldn't stay in that apartment. Couldn't afford it. Couldn't breathe in a place where everything reminded me of him. I understand that, Callum said. But it meant I couldn't find you. Couldn't keep the promise I made. Daniela went still. What promise? Callum turned. Looked at her. Walked to his desk. Unlocked a drawer. He pulled out a piece of paper. Held it for a moment. Then handed it to her. Daniela took it. Her hands shook. It was handwritten. The writing was shaky. Uneven. But unmistakable. Ethan's handwriting. She read it slowly. If I don't make it, Callum Hale is to ensure Daniela Cross and our child are financially secure and cared for. This is not charity. This is honoring the work we did together. Ethan Cross. Below that, a signature. Ethan's name, barely legible. And below that, a witness signature. A hospital chaplain. The date. 4 years ago. 2 weeks before Ethan died. Daniela's vision blurred. She read it again. Then a third time. He made you promise, she whispered. Yes. And you couldn't find me. No. Daniela looked up. Tears streamed down her face. So you've just been carrying this for 4 years? Callum's expression was raw. Unguarded. Every day. And when I texted you by accident, I knew it was you. I recognized the area code. Looked up the number. Saw your name. And I realized this was my chance. Maybe my only chance. Daniela sat down in the chair by the desk. The paper still in her hands. Ivy squirmed in the carrier. Started fussing. Daniela unbuckled the straps. Lifted Ivy out. Held her against her chest. The baby settled immediately. Callum watched. Something in his face softened. Can I tell you what happened? He asked quietly. The whole story? Daniela looked at him. Nodded. Callum walked to the other chair. Sat down. Leaned forward. Hands clasped between his knees. And he started talking. Ethan and I met at Harvard, Callum said. I was working on genetic markers for cancer. He was studying gene therapy delivery systems. We were assigned to the same research group. We hated each other at first. Daniela almost smiled. That sounds like Ethan. He thought I was arrogant. I thought he was reckless. But we kept getting paired on projects. And eventually we realized we were better together than apart. His creativity. My discipline. We balanced each other. What were you working on? A therapy that could target specific genetic mutations in cancer cells. Rewrite the code. Kill the cancer without destroying the patient. It was theoretical. Most people said it couldn't be done. But you did it. We did it, Callum said. Together. Ethan was the one who figured out the delivery mechanism. How to get the therapy into the cells. I handled the genetic sequencing. We published our first paper 7 years ago. It got attention. Funding. We started Meridian to push the research forward. And Ethan never told me any of this. He wanted to wait until it worked. Until we had proof. He didn't want to get your hopes up. Daniela looked down at Ivy. Stroked her hair. For what? Callum hesitated. Then he said it. He was already sick. Daniela's head snapped up. What? He'd been having symptoms for a year before he got diagnosed. Fatigue. Weight loss. He didn't tell anyone. Not even me. By the time he finally went to the doctor, it was stage 4. Daniela's breath caught. A year. He didn't want to stop working. Didn't want to slow down. He thought if he could just finish the research, he could save himself. Daniela closed her eyes. Oh, Ethan. When he finally told me, Callum continued, I pulled every string I had. Got him into a trial at Mass General. Best oncologists in the country. But the cancer was aggressive. And our therapy wasn't approved yet. How close were you? 6 months from FDA approval. Daniela's chest tightened. 6 months. I tried to get compassionate use, Callum said. His voice cracked. I called everyone I knew. Senators. Hospital administrators. FDA officials. I begged. I offered to fund the entire trial myself. But the regulations were ironclad. They wouldn't budge. So you just watched him die. I didn't just watch, Callum said. His eyes were red. I fought. I mortgaged my house. Sold my car. Put everything into pushing the trial forward. I worked 20-hour days. Barely slept. Ethan kept working too. Even from the hospital bed. We were so close. So damn close. But not close enough. No, Callum whispered. Not close enough. The office was silent. Daniela rocked Ivy gently, felt the baby's heartbeat against her chest. When did he make you promise? She asked. 2 weeks before the end. He knew he wasn't going to make it. The doctors had given him a month at most. He called me to the hospital. You were there, asleep in the chair by his bed. Daniela remembered. The chair. The hospital room. The beeping machines. He woke me up, Callum said. Asked me to step into the hall. Told me he needed me to promise something. What did he say? That you were the strongest person he'd ever known. But that you'd been carrying too much for too long. That the baby deserved a chance. That he couldn't leave you with nothing. Daniela's tears fell onto Ivy's head. He made me write it down, Callum continued. Made me sign it. Had a chaplain witness it. He said he didn't trust verbal promises. He wanted it in writing. So I couldn't back out. And then he died. 3 weeks later. You were there. I was there. He held your hand. Told you he loved you. And then he was gone. Daniela sobbed. Full, gasping sobs that shook her whole body. Ivy started crying too. Daniela held her tighter. Whispered, I'm sorry, baby. I'm sorry. Callum stood. Walked to a cabinet. Pulled out a box of tissues. Brought it to her. She took one. Wiped her face. Tried to breathe. I went to the funeral, Callum said softly. Stood in the back. I wanted to introduce myself. Wanted to tell you about the promise. But you looked so broken. And I thought, maybe she doesn't need a stranger telling her what her husband wanted. Maybe she needs space. So you left. I left. And then I tried to find you. But you were gone. I moved in with a friend for a while. Then to a shelter. Then I found the apartment in Dorchester. And changed your number. I had to. Ethan's family kept calling. Asking for money. Asking if there was life insurance. I couldn't take it anymore. Callum sat back down. I should have tried harder. Should have kept looking. Maybe, Daniela said. Or maybe it wasn't supposed to happen until now. They sat in silence. Ivy's crying subsided. She sucked on her fist. Looked around the office with wide eyes. The therapy you developed, Daniela said. Does it work? Callum nodded. We've treated over 40,000 patients. 73% survival rate for cancers that used to be death sentences. Because of Ethan. Because of both of us. But yes. His work saved them. Daniela looked at the framed photo on the wall. Ethan smiling. Young. Alive. He would have been so proud, she whispered. He is, Callum said. I know he is. Do you really believe that? I have to. It's the only thing that keeps me going. Daniela stood. Walked to the window. Looked out at the city below. All those people. Living their lives. Some of them alive because of what Ethan and Callum created. I don't know what to do with all this, she said. You don't have to do anything. But you want something. Everyone wants something. Callum shook his head. I want you to have the life Ethan wanted for you. That's all. And what did he want? For you to be safe. For Ivy to grow up without fear. For you to not have to choose between formula and rent. Daniela turned. Looked at him. And what do you want? Callum met her eyes. To keep my promise. Even if I'm 4 years late. She studied his face. Saw the grief there. The guilt. The sincerity. And she realized. He wasn't the enemy. He was just another person Ethan had left behind. I need time, she said. To process all of this. Take all the time you need. But I have one question. Anything. If the trial had been approved sooner. If Ethan had gotten the therapy. Would it have saved him? Callum's face went pale. He looked down. Swallowed hard. I don't know, he said. His voice was barely audible. We'll never know. But you think it could have? Callum looked up. Eyes wet. Yes. I think it could have. Daniela nodded. Okay. Okay. I believe you. I believe you tried. I believe you cared. And I believe you've been carrying this guilt for 4 years. Callum exhaled, like he'd been holding his breath. But I need you to understand something, Daniela said. I've been surviving on my own for 4 years. I've learned to fight, to stand up, to not need anyone. So if we're going to do this, whatever this is, I need it to be on my terms. Of course, Callum said immediately. I don't want charity. It's not charity. It's honoring Ethan. And I don't want to be some project you check off a list. You're not. Then what am I? Callum was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, You're the family of the best friend I ever had. The man who saved my life in more ways than one. And if I can help you, in any way, it's not charity. It's... He paused. It's love. For him. And for what he left behind. Daniela felt something shift in her chest. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But understanding. She looked at Ivy. Then at Callum. Can I ask you something? She said. Anything. Do you have anyone? Family? Friends? Callum shook his head. My parents died when I was young. No siblings. I was married once. Briefly. She left when I put everything into trying to save Ethan. Said I cared more about the dead than the living. Daniela winced. I'm sorry. Don't be. She was right. Are you lonely? Callum looked at her. Every day. Daniela shifted Ivy to her other hip. Me too. They stood there. Two people shaped by the same loss. Connected by the same ghost. Then Daniela said, I should go. This is a lot. I understand. But... She hesitated. Can I come back? If I have more questions. Anytime. Day or night. She nodded. Started toward the door. Then stopped. Thank you, she said. For the formula. For the money. For trying. Callum's voice was soft. Thank you for giving me a chance to keep my promise. Daniela left the office. Walked down the hall. Took the elevator to the lobby. As the doors closed, she saw Callum standing in the hallway. Watching her go. And she realized. He looked just as lost as she felt. Daniela didn't go straight home. She walked. Ivy strapped to her chest. Through streets she didn't know. Past buildings that gleamed in the afternoon sun. Her mind spun. Ethan had been sick for a year before telling anyone. Had been working himself to death trying to create a cure. Had made Callum promise to take care of her. And she'd never known any of it. How much else had he hidden? How many late nights had been about research and not traffic? How many times had he said everything's fine when it wasn't? She found herself in a park. Sat on a bench. Watched people walk by. Joggers. Dog walkers. A couple holding hands. Normal people living normal lives. She pulled out her phone. Scrolled through old photos. Found one of Ethan. Taken a month before he died. He was smiling, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. His face was gaunt. His skin pale. She'd asked him if he was okay. He'd said just tired. Just tired. Daniela closed her eyes. Let the sun warm her face. I'm so angry at you, she whispered. For lying. For hiding. For leaving. Ivy cooed softly. But I understand. Daniela continued. I think. You were trying to protect me. You always were. A tear slipped down her cheek. I just wish you'd trusted me enough to let me help. Her phone buzzed. She looked at it. A message from Rosa. How'd it go? Daniela typed back. I don't even know. But I think I got some answers. Good answers. Daniela thought about it. Then typed. Painful ones. But yeah. Good. She stayed in the park for another hour. Let Ivy sleep in the carrier. Watched the clouds move across the sky. And slowly. Very slowly. She felt something in her chest loosen. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But the beginning of it. That night, after Ivy was asleep, Daniela sat on the couch with her laptop. She opened her email. Started typing. To Callum Hale. Subject. Questions. She wrote. You said Ethan made you promise to take care of us. I believe you. But I need to know what that means to you. I don't want money I didn't earn. I don't want handouts. I need purpose. I need to feel like I'm contributing. If you really want to honor Ethan's memory, help me find a way to do that. Not for him. For me. She hit send before she could second guess it. The reply came 10 minutes later. What if I told you I've been trying to build something for 3 years and haven't been able to find the right person to lead it? Daniela typed back. I'd ask what it is. A patient advocacy program. Families who can't afford treatment. Who don't know how to navigate the system. Who need someone to fight for them. Ethan always said that was the missing piece. The research saves lives, but only if people can access it. Daniela stared at the screen. Her heart started pounding. She typed. I don't have a medical degree. You have something better. You've lived it. You know what it's like to be on the other side. To feel helpless. That's what these families need. Someone who understands. This sounds like charity. It's a job. Real salary. Real responsibilities. And if you hate it, you can leave. No strings. Daniela sat back. Thought about it. Thought about the last 4 years. The struggle. The shame. The feeling of being invisible. And she thought about Ethan. About the work he'd died trying to finish. About the people he'd wanted to save. She typed. I need time to think about it. Take all the time you need. But thank you. For offering. Thank you for considering. Daniela closed the laptop. Looked around her tiny apartment. At the boxes of formula stacked in the corner. At Ivy's crib by the window. At the life she'd built from nothing. And she let herself imagine. Just for a moment. A different life. One where she had purpose. Where she helped people. Where Ethan's legacy lived on through her. It felt dangerous to hope. But she let herself do it anyway. 2 weeks later, Daniela stood outside Meridian Biogenomics again. This time she wasn't angry. Wasn't confused. She was ready. She'd spent the last 2 weeks researching. Reading about patient advocacy. Talking to Rosa. Thinking about what Ethan would want. And she'd come to a decision. She walked into the lobby. The same receptionist smiled at her. Daniela crossed to see Callum Hale, she said. He's expecting you. Top floor. Daniela took the elevator up. Walked down the hall. Knocked on Callum's office door. Come in, his voice called. She opened the door. Stepped inside. Callum stood by the window. Turned when she entered. Daniela, he said. His face lit up. Just slightly. You came. I did. Have you made a decision? Daniela nodded. Walked further into the room. I'll take the job, she said. On one condition. Name it. I do it my way. I talk to families the way I wish someone had talked to me. I don't sugarcoat. I don't make promises I can't keep. And if I see something that's not working, I get to say so. Callum smiled. That's exactly what I need. Daniela exhaled. Okay then. Okay. They shook hands. And Daniela felt it. The first real spark of hope she'd felt in 4 years. When do I start? She asked. Whenever you're ready. Monday. Callum nodded. I'll have everything ready. Daniela started toward the door. Then stopped. Thank you, she said. For not giving up on the promise. Thank you for giving me the chance to keep it. She left the office feeling lighter than she had in years. 3 months passed. Daniela stood in her new apartment. Bright. Clean. Windows that actually let in sunlight. Ivy's room had a real crib. A changing table. Toys scattered on the floor. It looked like a child's room. Not a corner of an adult's survival. Daniela walked to the kitchen. Made coffee in a machine that actually worked. Poured it into a mug without chips. Her phone buzzed. A message from Callum. Morning. Big day today. You ready? She smiled. Typed back. As ready as I'll ever be. Today was the official launch of the patient advocacy program. Daniela had spent 3 months building it, interviewing families, creating resources, training a small team. It was real. It was hers. And it was terrifying. But she'd learned something in the last 3 months. She was good at this. Good at talking to scared parents. At navigating insurance red tape. At fighting for people who didn't have the energy to fight for themselves. She was making a difference. And it felt like honoring Ethan in a way that mattered. Her phone buzzed again. This time from Rosa. Knock them dead today. So proud of you. Daniela sent back a heart emoji. She finished her coffee. Got Ivy dressed. Packed her bag. The daycare at Meridian was a perk she hadn't expected. But Callum had insisted. Said if she was going to do this work, she needed support. She'd stopped fighting him on things like that. Learned to accept help without seeing it as weakness. She took the subway to work. Walked into the building. Rode the elevator up. The advocacy office was on the 12th floor. Bright. Open. Filled with people who actually cared. Daniela dropped Ivy at the daycare. Kissed her head. Watched her toddle toward the toys without looking back. Independent. Just like her mother. Daniela walked to her office. Sat at her desk. Looked at the schedule for the day. 3 family meetings. A conference call with an insurance company. A training session for new volunteers. She was about to start when there was a knock on her door. Come in, she called. The door opened. Callum stood there, holding 2 cups of coffee. Thought you might need this, he said. You're a lifesaver. He handed her a cup. Sat in the chair across from her desk. You nervous? He asked. Terrified. Good. Means you care. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. It had become a ritual. Morning coffee before the chaos of the day. How's Ivy? Callum asked. Growing like a weed. She said a new word yesterday. Yeah. What? Up. Just. Up. Over and over. Callum smiled. That's wonderful. Daniela looked at him. Saw the genuine joy in his face. He'd been part of their lives for 3 months now. Not intrusive. Not overbearing. Just. Present. He babysat sometimes when Daniela had evening meetings. Brought toys when he visited. Listened when Daniela needed to vent about frustrating cases. He'd become something she hadn't expected. A friend. You're still coming to dinner on Thursday, right? Daniela asked. Wouldn't miss it. Rosa's cooking. So prepare yourself. Callum laughed. I'm ready. Daniela smiled. Then her expression grew serious. Can I ask you something? Always. Do you ever? She hesitated. Do you ever stop feeling guilty? About Ethan? Callum set down his coffee. Looked at his hands. No, he said quietly. But I've learned to live with it. To let it drive me forward instead of pull me under. Does this help? The advocacy program? Yes. Because it's what he would have wanted. It's taking the science and making it human. Daniela nodded. I think about him every day. When I talk to these families, I see us. See what we went through. And I think, maybe this is how I keep him alive. Callum met her eyes. It is. The moment hung between them. Understanding. Shared grief. Shared purpose. Then Callum stood. I should let you get to work. Thanks for the coffee. Anytime. He left. Daniela turned to her computer. Pulled up the first case file of the day. And she got to work. Thursday came. Rosa had gone all out. The table was covered with dishes. Empanadas. Rice. Plantains. Flan for dessert. Callum arrived at 6. Holding a bottle of wine and a stuffed bear for Ivy. You spoil her, Daniela said. She deserves it. They sat down to eat. Rosa grilled Callum about his life. His work. His intentions. Daniela kicked her under the table. Rosa just grinned. After dinner, Rosa insisted on doing dishes. told Daniela and Callum to take Ivy to the living room. They sat on the floor, Ivy between them. Building blocks scattered everywhere. Callum stacked them. Ivy knocked them down. Squealed with delight. Demanded he do it again. She's got you trained, Daniela said. Completely. Daniela watched them. Saw the gentle way Callum handed Ivy blocks. The patience when she threw them. The smile that reached his eyes. She looks like him, Callum said softly. More and more every day. She does. Daniela's voice was thick. I wish he could see her. I think he does. You really believe that? Callum looked at her. I have to. Otherwise what was it all for? Daniela nodded. Felt tears prick her eyes. He'd be so proud of you, Callum said. Of what you've built. How you've survived. I think he'd be proud of you too. Callum didn't answer. Just reached for another block. Handed it to Ivy. From the kitchen, Rosa called out. I'm heading out. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. She grabbed her coat. Winked at Daniela. Left. And suddenly it was just the three of them. Callum. Daniela. Ivy. A family that didn't look like any family Daniela had imagined. But a family nonetheless. I should probably go, Callum said. It's getting late. Or. Daniela hesitated. You could stay. Watch a movie. Hang out. Callum looked surprised. You sure? Yeah. I mean. If you want. I'd like that. So they stayed. Put Ivy to bed together. Callum read her a story while Daniela cleaned up. When Ivy was asleep, they sat on the couch. Turned on a movie neither of them really watched. Halfway through, Callum spoke. Can I tell you something? Of course. These last 3 months. They've been the best I've had in 4 years. Daniela looked at him. Yeah. I didn't realize how lonely I'd been until I wasn't anymore. I know what you mean. You and Ivy. You've given me something I didn't think I'd have again. What's that? Family. Daniela's chest tightened. We're not. I know, Callum said quickly. I know we're not actually. I just mean. You feel like family. Daniela was quiet for a moment. Then she said, You feel like family to me too. They sat in the soft glow of the TV. 2 people trying to build something new from the rubble of what they'd lost. And for the first time in 4 years. Daniela felt like maybe, just maybe, things were going to be okay. 6 months after that Thursday, Daniela stood in Callum's office. It was late. Almost 8. Most of the building was empty. Ivy was with Rosa. Daniela had a case that was eating at her. A family whose insurance had denied coverage. A little boy who needed the therapy. Who would die without it. She'd been fighting for a week. Getting nowhere. I don't know what else to do, she told Callum. I've called everyone. Filed every appeal. They won't budge. Callum leaned back in his chair. What's the family's name? Marcus and Teresa Lopez. Their son is 7. Same genetic mutation Ethan had. Callum's expression shifted. Show me the file. Daniela handed it over. Watched him read. He picked up the phone. Dialed a number. Senator Harrison, he said when someone answered. It's Callum Hale. I need a favor. Daniela watched him work. Watched him leverage every connection. Every ounce of power he had. 20 minutes later, he hung up. The therapy's approved, he said. They start Monday. Daniela's legs went weak. She sat down. Just like that? Just like that. How did you? I know people. And I'm not afraid to use every resource I have to save a kid. Daniela looked at him. Saw the fire in his eyes. The same fire Ethan used to have. Thank you, she whispered. Don't thank me. You're the one who fought for them. I just made a phone call. You saved his life. We saved his life, Callum corrected. Together. Daniela stood. Walked around the desk. And without thinking. Without planning. She hugged him. Callum went still. Then slowly. Carefully. He hugged her back. They stood like that for a long moment. When they pulled apart, Daniela saw something in his eyes. Something vulnerable. Something real. "I should go," she said softly. "Yeah. Me too." But neither of them moved. "Daniela," Callum said. His voice was barely a whisper. "I need to tell you something." "Okay." "These last few months. Being part of your life. Part of Ivy's life. It's been." He paused. "It's been everything." Daniela's heart pounded. "Callum. I'm not asking for anything," he said quickly. "I just need you to know. You've given me a reason to keep going. A reason to be better. And I'm grateful. For the wrong number. For the second chance. For you." Daniela felt tears on her cheeks. "I'm grateful too." They stood in the quiet office. The city lights glowing beyond the windows. And Daniela realized. Somewhere along the way, between the grief and the anger and the slow, painful healing, she'd forgiven him. Not just for the promise he'd almost broken, but for being human. For failing. For trying anyway. "I think Ethan would be happy," she said. "That we found each other." Callum nodded. "I think so too." Daniela smiled. Wiped her eyes. "Come on. Let's get out of here." They left together. Took the elevator down. Walked out into the cool night air. And as they went their separate ways, Daniela looked back. Saw Callum standing under the streetlight. Watching her go. She waved. He waved back. And she knew. Whatever this was. Whatever they were becoming. It was good. It was real. And it was enough. 1 year after the wrong number text, Daniela stood in the conference room at Meridian Biogenomics. The room was full. Families they'd helped. Staff from the advocacy program. Board members. Press. Callum stood at the front, giving a speech about the program's success. 60 families helped. 43 lives saved. Countless more supported. Daniela sat in the back. Ivy on her lap. The little girl was almost 2 now. Talking in full sentences. Running everywhere. A tiny hurricane of energy. And then Callum said something that made Daniela's breath catch. None of this would exist without Daniela Cross. She took a broken promise and turned it into a legacy. She took grief and turned it into purpose. And she reminded me why we do this work. Not for the science. Not for the patents. But for the people. The room applauded. People turned to look at her. Daniela felt her face burn. Callum gestured for her to come up. She shook her head. He smiled. Kept gesturing. Rosa, sitting beside her, pushed her shoulder. "Go." Daniela stood. Handed Ivy to Rosa. Walked to the front. Callum stepped aside. Let her stand at the microphone. She looked out at all the faces. Saw the families she'd fought for. The lives she'd touched. And she thought of Ethan. Wondered if he was watching. If he was proud. "A year ago," she said, her voice shaking, "I sent a text to the wrong number. I was desperate. Alone. Struggling to feed my daughter. And a stranger answered. Offered help. Changed my life." She looked at Callum. But he wasn't really a stranger. He was my late husband's best friend. His research partner. And he'd been carrying a promise for 4 years. A promise to take care of us. The room was silent. "He kept that promise," Daniela continued. "But he gave me more than money. He gave me purpose. He gave me a chance to turn my pain into something meaningful. To help families who were where I was. Lost. Scared. Alone." She looked back at the audience. "So if you're watching this, if you're struggling, if you feel invisible, know this. You're not alone. And sometimes, the help you need comes from the places you least expect." The room erupted in applause. Daniela stepped back. Callum hugged her. Whispered, "Ethan would be so proud." "I hope so," she whispered back. After the event, after the press left and the families went home, Daniela found Callum on the roof terrace. He stood by the railing, looking out at the city. She walked up beside him, Ivy asleep in her arms. "Hell of a day," she said. "Yeah." Callum smiled. "It was." They stood in comfortable silence. Then Daniela said, "I've been thinking. About what comes next. For me. For Ivy. For us." Callum turned. Looked at her. "Us. We've been doing this dance for a year," Daniela said. "This friendship. This partnership. This whatever it is. And I think it's time I was honest." "About what?" "About the fact that you've become one of the most important people in my life. That Ivy lights up when she sees you. That She paused. "That I don't want to keep pretending you're just Ethan's friend." "What do you want me to be?" "I don't know yet," Daniela admitted. "But I know I want you in our lives. Really in our lives. Not as an obligation. Not as a promise. But because we want you there." Callum's eyes shone. "I want that too." Daniela smiled. "Okay then. Okay." Ivy stirred. Opened her eyes. Saw Callum. Reached for him. Callum took her gently. Held her against his chest. The little girl laid her head on his shoulder. Closed her eyes again. Daniela watched them. And her heart swelled. This wasn't the life she'd imagined. Wasn't the family she'd planned. But it was hers. And it was beautiful. They stood on the rooftop. 3 people connected by loss. Bound by love. Building something new. And somewhere, in whatever place Ethan was now, Daniela hoped he was smiling. Because his daughter was safe. His work was saving lives. And the 2 people he'd loved most had found each other. The promise was kept. And the story, born from a wrong number and a desperate night, had become something neither of them expected. It had become home. If this story touched you, if it reminded you that sometimes broken promises lead to beautiful beginnings, share it with someone who needs hope today. Drop a comment telling me what moved you most. And subscribe. Because every story here is crafted to remind you that even in our darkest moments, connection can find us. Love can heal us. And second chances are always possible. Thank you for listening. Until the next story. This is Tales of Desire with Mr. Walker.